Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello. Remember, as always, if you want to write something, please write it down the side. Hi, hi, hi. Really nice to see you. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Everyone all right? I hope you're well. I hope you're good. Jerry, I'm making you a co-host, so you know, so that's nice and easy. Hope everyone's well. Hello, nice to see you all. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. For some reason, chat doesn't seem to be coming up for me. Is it coming up for anyone else? Strange. Oh, yeah, there is. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Hello. I just wait for everyone to come in. We'll see how everyone does. Hello. Can I please remind everyone that not to can everyone put their videos on if they want to? You should be able to. You should be able to start your video. For some reason, it was freezing, but I've changed the security settings, so I'm changing things so it's getting a little bit better. So you should be able to start your video. You should be able to chat, but you can't unmute yourself, and you can't share whiteboards, and you can't share screens. So that should be able to help things a little bit. So that's the idea. That's the reason I've done it that way around. So you can chat. Yeah, so I've done a blanket security for when people come in, and then I take it off a little bit now, so it's better. Hello, hi everyone, nice to see you. We're talking about attraction today, and clearly this is being recorded because I'm very honest about that. I've got the chat not on video yet. It should be coming up. You should be able to do it now. So I'm making it very secure and then changing it. Jerry, I think I can ask you to unmute if you want to. I think I can do that. I'm getting the hang of it slowly but surely.
I am unmuted. Ha! I have the power. I've got the power.
The stream is live as well, so thank you. So we're actually also on YouTube, I think, and Facebook as well.
Oh, so I don't need to record it then. Okay, cool.
I'm recording it, and then I put it in. I put it on FetLife now as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Hello, everyone. So people are saying hello. Jerry says hello. Stephen Cottrell says hello and waves. Jim says it's all working now. It is. Melissa says hi. Saraswati says hello. Opal Fritz says I've got the chat, not on the video yet. You are now. I can definitely see you.
Yep.
Stream is live, and Melissa says I'm without camera. Of course you can be without camera. You do not have to put on your camera at all here. I really don't care. All I ask is that you don't go naked. I ask that you don't say anything inappropriate to anybody else in here. Another reason why I've muted everyone. And please don't write anything on the side and say, hey, Jerry, you look really hot today, or don't you look lovely, or something along those lines. We're really not interested in that type of shit. It's just really important that we keep respectful, please, as much as we can of everyone else. So Andy says it's working now. Hi, everyone. Hope all are well. As usual, just in from work, so prepping dinner and kink shrinking at the same time. Who says a bloke can't multitask? Me. I say people can't multitask, not just a bloke. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you. Hi, Cosmopolite. Hi from the dogs. And Cinder says hello, everyone, as well. So hi, everyone. Really nice to see you all. Okay, so we're talking about attraction today. The different types, everything else as well. I think attraction sounds better in French. Attraction. It's much nicer, isn't it? I think
Country pooch, madam.
I think tout sont mieux en français. Everything sounds better in French.
Bien sûr, pourquoi pas.
It's better, isn't it? Hi, Cinders. Nice to see you all. Okay, so we're talking about attraction. How do people define attraction? Because people wanted to ask, where do you find it? How do you get it? What are the different types? Where do we go? Especially for people who are kinky or alternative or into BDSM. How do we do it? And do you have a type, for example? Do you have, like, when we talk about attraction, what do you mean by attraction? What does it mean? So I think it's really interesting to just generally talk about attraction and what it means. Do you have any ideas, or what would you like to get from talking today about attraction? I'm just curious. If you can write that down the side, that would be lovely. And if not, we'll just start anyway, because I'm sure you pop questions up as we go along. I try really hard to try and catch all the questions. Jerry's pretty good at catching me if I don't. So thank you very much. And clearly, if you are a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, a counsellor, or you work in any form of mental health, drop me an email at the end and I'll give you a free CPD certificate, so you've got one of those as well. And clearly, if you've got anything to add. But as I say, be kind, be considerate, be nice to everybody, and please, no nudity, no masturbation. Yes, it does happen. I think it's 3 times now, isn't it, Jerry? Is it a 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. Times. I mean, what is there to masturbate? I really don't get it. Hi everyone. Oh, that's a good question. To what extent is attraction a reliable indicator of compatibility? Near enough fuck all, depending on the compatibility we're talking about. But we'll come into that one in a little bit as well. That's a really good question. In fact, it can be the opposite as well sometimes. So there are many different types of attraction and different things that we can talk about. So as I say, I will try and go through the questions. So we have emotional attraction, we have romantic attraction, we have sexual attraction, we have physical attraction, we have aesthetic attraction, and takeaway attraction. So there's some of the sort of attractions that we have. And what that means is it kind of defines our interest. Jeannie, thanks for doing this for us, Deb. Uniforms like law enforcement are attractive to me, but my ultimate attraction is to obedience. Yeah, and that will come into this actually, and intellectual attraction. Yeah, yep. So these will all come into it. So it's about our desire, our affinity, our what is it that makes us like somebody else? And most of us tend to label attraction as purely romantic, but actually we can be romantic about friends or about something that someone's wearing or something else as well. So it's really about connection more than anything. Good conversation is an initial attraction for me. I agree with you. Being able to have a good conversation when Matthias, that sapiosexual, that can somebody actually discuss this with me and what happens here? So that's really an important part of attraction. And often people want some form of attraction physically when they meet somebody, because that matters, but it isn't important to everybody, especially if we prefer someone's mind. So it can take all sorts of different forms and shapes. And actually, often we can actually have quite a few simultaneous forms of attraction in one go. But it's very nuanced, it's very clever. So let's look at the different types a little bit. So when we've got emotional attraction, it might not be physical in nature. It's about connection. So on the scene and in polyamory and more under that kink sexual attraction, and in the vanilla world as well, I guess, we would call this more demi. So it's all about that connection. It's that desire. So there are different forms of connection when it comes to emotional connection. So there's alterous. Alterous means that emotional closeness. Platonic, romantic don't feel right for us to use, so it's alterous. We don't like the word romantic, so we use a slightly different word. That might be a new word on somebody. Attachment. So that's a sort of bond, and I'm going to come on to attachment later and look at a few attachment types and how they impact attraction as well. So that'll come down as well. And attachment impacts so many forms of relationships that we have. That can be sexual relationships, emotional relationships, family relationships, above, sideways, and down. Somebody who looks after us, and our connection to caregivers. Can someone please spell that for me? Alterous, A-L-T-E-R-O-U-S. A-L-T-E-R-O-U-S, alterous. That term, that's more Platonic, so you can say that as well. Alter-O-U-S, if that helps. Thanks, Jerry, for writing it down. Intellectual, that really matters, doesn't it? So like, are we connected to somebody's intelligence, their capacity to speak, their capacity to know things, could it be knowledge? Can it be their intelligence or their emotional intelligence? Maybe how aware are they of themselves? What does it mean? And that's more that sapiosexual. So that's about your brain. Well, it could be, couldn't it, Explorer? Who knows? That's why I said alterous instead of altruist. I'm not sure if I was clear enough, so I apologize if I wasn't, but clearly need some more Coke. Someone who has the confidence to dress a bit different as well gives a sense of me if a person has a sense of self. And actually that comes under a few other aspects of attraction as well. So we're going to that as well. Love, good old fashioned love. I'm going to go into some of the biochemistry and neurochemistry of this a little bit later as well. So when we've got love, that's that passionate feeling. That's a real affection, and that has emotional attachment within it. Passion is its own form of desire. Sometimes we can feel really attracted to someone and just want to fuck their brains out and realize we're probably not going to do anything else. Could you explain demi again? People tend to throw out lots of different definitions because there are too many definitions. For me, so I'm going to really clear that one. And from what I've read and from what I teach and everything I do, Demi-attraction is that feeling of a connection with the other person. It's the attraction that's a connection. So that could be more to do with their mind, less to do with their body, and more to do with the respect or care that they have maybe, or their emotional intelligence. So demi is more about a connection with another human being. And I would argue I am much more demi-sexually based than I find some people attractive, but actually I don't like their brain or their mind or their awareness. So then I'm not attracted to them. So there is an attraction to what they look like, which we all have. And I'll go into that a little bit more as well as we're going on today. So sapio is more for somebody's intelligence. It's their knowledge, their capacity, whereas demi is the connection we both have. So sapio is more one-sided, demi is more two-sided, that connection that we create between us. And of course, sometimes we can have a solo connection where we feel very connected, but actually nothing really happens. So within that as well, we have passion. That's a very strong emotion. We have platonic, non-sexual, non-romantic, grey. Some people call this, but you can go into grey as well. A lot of us have a very protective form of attraction to people. So that could be for our children, that could be for our pets. You can see this from a dominance perspective, can't you? I really want to take care of you, the whole daddy principle. I want to look after you. I want to make sure you're safe. And that's a real protective form of attraction that we need to take care of someone. And now, of course, protection is very different when we have to care for someone. I have written about that before. I've got a piece of writing on that. I don't know what word I just used, cosmopolite, because I haven't got most of this written down. I'm just talking off the top of my head, so I'm really sorry. Someone else might remember. Don't remember what I said 3 seconds ago. Sapio, not sepio. No, just sapiosexual. That's what we were talking about. So we do feel that way very strongly sometimes. Platonic love, of course, is that, yeah, I love you, you're great, that's our children. I had something, but maybe it's just me. It probably was me, cosmopolite, honestly, it often is. We've got that sort of social connection as well. Somebody who's very socially attractive, they're very popular, people want to be around them. Oh my God, they're so cool, aren't they? Don't you just want to be with them? I know that they're amazing, aren't they? Oh my God, yeah, you should hear, oh my God, go and that, if they've got that sort of feel, they're very popular, and people work also by reputation. Some people say they've got a squish rather than a crush. I don't know if that's something you've ever heard of. So a squish is a non-romantic relationship, but I really want intimacy with this person. So a crush is we tend to stay away, but it's a non-romantic version of a crush. So it's non-sexual. Andy says, I know what you mean. I had a couple of meetups earlier last year with a very odd flame, very attractive, but her views were so right-wing, just totally ruined my view of her. I had a girlfriend at school, and she's fucking beautiful. And she got in contact with me a couple of years ago, and she's still beautiful. She still looks just like when we were at school. It's shocking. She still looks very young, very attractive, but she's so brutal and harsh and not particularly pleasant that I see her face as very angular and harsh. I really understand that she's so beautiful for a lot of people, but she just doesn't do it for me because I see her personality on her face. And a lot of us do go into that when attraction, and when you see someone doing something nasty, they take a very different turn, don't they, when they're not as attractive as they used to be. And one in queer platonic or a partnership is also called a zucchini nowadays. So that's quite cool. I like that. We also have romantic attraction. So that's such a good definition. So queer platonic, or the one I was talking about, squish, or that one, or the description of the angular face when someone, oh, the sound's going a bit funny. I hope you can all hear me. Romantic attraction, again, is different. That's an intense emotional attraction or connection, and it isn't just physical and it isn't just sexual. It's got that feeling of I really want to be with this person and I love being around this person. You can be in love with someone romantically as well. Aloromantic is somebody who experiences a romantic attraction. Amateur normativity, that's when somebody has a social group around them that says you have to make sure that you have to do this. And that certainly around marriage. Is there a disturbance on your end, or can you all hear me okay? Just, you can, okay, so it's just on my end, great, okay, squish, yeah, it's quite sweet, isn't it? I like that. So amateur normativity is when we're under pressure to get married, for example, where somebody says, that's the norm. You should get married. And it's always got that social pressure on it of this is what you do in this culture, therefore this is what you have to do. Aromantic, arrow as well, that's people who don't have any form of romantic attraction really in their lives and no desire for any form of romantic relationship. Autoromantic, that's somebody who has romantic attraction to themselves. There are a lot of people who are in love with themselves. Some are mental health conditions and some are not. There are definitions between the two. And people do love themselves or feel romantic qualities of themselves. There are a lot of people who are getting married to themselves at the moment, and some of them do that because they're auto-romantic, and some of them do that because they don't want to have the pressure, and marriage tends to take that pressure off in some way, shape or form, even if they marry themselves. Biromantic means we're same as bisexual, that we are attracted to all genders. It's not saying it's specific in any way. Bi is quite an old word nowadays. It tends not to be used anymore, and I still think it has a stigma about it. Had a stigma about it when I was growing up, and it's something I definitely experienced. If you were on a rights march in any way, shape or form, you definitely knew that you were the bi person in that time, but that was one of the only definitions you had if you were attracted to everybody or others. A crush, that's your teacher, that's a real romantic crush on somebody. It's like, oh my God, did you see Mr. Johnson or Mrs. Johnson or whoever? Like, my God, they're so hot. And they're often really inappropriate. Their age is way higher, or it could be a film star or somebody else as well. And lots of children feel crushes and teenagers feel crushes. Not good. On the aromantic spectrum, we have demi-romantic. I would argue that I tend to be hetero-romantic. I tend to prefer my romantic relationships with men. Aromantic, when it comes to demi-romantics, I only want romantic attraction if I feel that connection. Grey romantic is somebody who doesn't really have a lot of romantic attraction, the same as grey sexual. So grey romantic tends to mean, no, I don't really feel romantic feelings. It would have to be under a very specific, clear ideal as to why I'm feeling it. Heteroromantic, the one I just used, is when I am attracted to somebody of an opposite gender or sex, whichever one you feel comfortable using, because people really feel uncomfortable with the word sex sometimes, and people also feel uncomfortable with the word gender. So pick the one that makes you feel comfortable. Homoromantic, guess what? Same sex or gender. Panromantic is, yeah, everybody. Love them all. Bring them all to me. So gender and sex don't play at the same sort of strength for somebody. It's about, yeah, no, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've got between your legs or not. I don't give a shit. You're an awesome human being and I love being with you. And that can be panromantic. So you can hear that these things are the same as sexual attractions as well. And polyromantic, maybe not everybody, but multiple people and more than one person at once. We then have sexual attraction. So that's a different form of lust or desire. So let's have a look at lust. So lust is that feeling of passion, desire, affection, wanting someone else. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Fucking hell, I would. That sort of thing. And we do see pictures of people, don't we? Where we just go, Jesus Christ, they're beautiful. And that can be very different to fucking hell, I just want to sleep with that person. And there are, of course, typical things that we're attracted to for some people in some cultures, and there are non-typical things. So there's a real variety as to what attraction means, and different cultures promote different attractions. There is a really lovely piece of photography, a piece of research, where this guy takes pictures of people who are considered attractive. I don't like that so much, but that's what the general consensus was of what's considered attractive in different cultures. And it's incredible the difference in these human beings that are considered attractive in different places. And also we have attraction over time. You can go back to Raphaelite, so pre-Raphaelite, and you've got very different forms of human beings and different sizes and shapes that is considered attractive. And you look at the UK that went for Twiggy and then went incredibly small. So it's really interesting that over time, what we consider attractive has also changed. There was a point where anybody who'd been out in the sun, if they were white skinned and they were tanned, would be considered, that's not as attractive because it means you're working class. And then we've gone through the 80s and 90s and early thousands when people say, oh my God, you look so well, you look tanned, you've been on holiday, you look amazing. And now we know the amount of issues that causes. Actually, we're not seeing tans as attractive anymore. So again, time, science, and knowledge impacts attraction as well. There's objective sexual, where that's when most people will consider that person pretty sexy. You might not experience some form of sexual attraction to them, but you say, yeah, I can really see why people do. So that's objective sexual. Subjective sexual is where I feel attraction. So it's very, very personal. Fucking hell, I really fancy that person. That's why. So that's chemistry. Some people also call subjective sexual attraction chemistry, sexual chemistry. It's all about the connection. We then have physical attraction. I told you we're really going to cover attraction today, so I'm doing every single little bit and aspect of it. So I hope we learn something and get some new words in as well. So this is how we want to touch or receive touch or have something. And not always romantic, not always sexual, because it can be a hug or a kiss and it can be affectionate. Andy says, I've seen a lot of attractions happening in amateur theatre, usually when, don't get me started, usually when two people are playing opposite each other. The story, emotional music, getting lost in the character can really take over people. Admittedly, although nothing happened, it happened to me when I fell completely in love with a girl I was playing opposite. We both played the leads in Sweet Charity. I've done a lot of acting, as you know, singing and dancing in my time too. And I remember once playing Calamity Jane, and Wild Bill Hickok shoved his tongue down my throat and his wife was in the audience. And there was no agreement on that. There was no consent on that. Plus, you spend so much time together. So you definitely, when you play a part, the whole think, act, believe, become comes into that as well. And it impacts our brains, the way we're doing, the way we're connecting, and what's happening for us. So yes, that can make a real difference as well. And I think you really have to understand sometimes that the chemistry that you're feeling is not necessarily a good thing. And we need to cover that as well as to what happens in the brain. I've played Danny Gilmartin in that show. I'm sure we've done many shows that are similar over the years. Okay, so when we're talking about some kind of physicality, a physical attraction, we're talking about intimacy, that want to be close, that closeness between two people. That could be a cuddle, that could be a hug, that could be sexual. So as I said, objective physical is when everybody thinks, yeah, that's that sort of person that I would really like. I really get why everybody likes them. You might not like them, but everybody does. The same as the romantic. Subjective physical as well. Yeah, that's all about chemistry. And there's sensual attraction as well, physicality when it comes into it. And that's when, oh, I just want to touch that person, or I just want to be near that person. There was a TikTok yesterday. Should I admit I watch TikToks? Probably shouldn't, should I? Too old. But there was a TikTok yesterday of a mum, and her 1-year-old just went over to this woman who had 2 or 3 children. And she said, I've got permission to share this. And they've even made a play date, because this 1-year-old just clung on to this woman, and all she wanted to do was be with her and near her and have a cuddle with her. And she said, oh my God, like, my child's never done that before with somebody else. And that can be a lot of things. And that can be about attachment, and we'll cover attachment in a bit as well. We also have aesthetic attraction, and aesthetic attraction is the fact that we can admire what somebody looks like without actually feeling attracted to them, or want to touch them, or want to have sex with them, or have anything. By the way, as well, I talk about desire, of course. Underpinning all of this is consent. Just because you want to, you don't go up and touch someone. But I really hope everyone who's here would know that. I think that's quite a basic thing for us. You don't have a right to go up and touch someone or say things that are inappropriate to other people. So you have to be careful. So aesthetic attraction is quite interesting. So you might think, oh my God, I love that person's style. I love their hair. I love the way they weigh things. You like their whole look. I have a bit of a thing about men in suits. So if I see a man with slightly long hair that's slightly out of the perfect haircut, and they're quite good looking, and they're in a suit or a 3-piece suit, I'm like, fucking hell. And actually, it's not so much to do with their looks. It's the feel of the suit. It's the aesthetic attraction that I'm
just going to go get changed now.
It's so true though, isn't it? Like suit porn or different things. We like different things on people. Some people really love people in certain forms of underwear. You could cover that with rubber. You can also look at that with latex and different costumes and all sorts of things that people wear. So aesthetic attraction, we can also have the same sort of feeling when we look at a beautiful thing that we like as well. And I'm going to come into that as well a little bit later. A three-piece suit definitely gives me confidence. Yeah. And actually, I think the other thing to think about is how often we find confidence sexy as well, because that's a big thing as well, isn't it? But so we could feel it. So, you know, when you just, like, the skies have been so beautiful over the last couple of days, absolutely gorgeous. And you just go, oh my God, look at that. That's so amazing. So like, I'm not picking on you or asking people to look at you, Liz. I hope you don't mind, but Liz's background is of a beautiful thing to look at. So, you know, we go, oh my God, that's beautiful, isn't it? Or if you look at your master gyms as well, you know, that's a beautiful room. You might really like it. I'm trying to sell my house at the moment, and the first set of photographs were okay, but I asked for a second set of photographs to be done, and they are fucking amazing. I would want to move into my house. They're so gorgeous. So that's that aesthetic attraction. Don't forget as well, something that's quite unusual that we have sometimes is object sexuality or objectophilia. And that's more and more common nowadays. So that's people who develop a romantic attraction or a bond with an object or a structure. So there's been quite a few. There's been people who've married a station. There have been people who have married the Eiffel Tower. I don't know if you remember that woman, her last name, I've forgotten her full, Erica? I think it was Erica. Her name is Erica Eiffel now. She got married to the Eiffel Tower. She changed her name by default. So she's married, and there are lots of reasons why that somebody might suffer from some form of objectophilia, because for some people it can really be a sufferance, because you're never going to get anything back from the object or the structure in any way, shape or form. Maybe people who really find it hard to develop connection with others, if they suffer from some kind of social isolation, that can be difficult. If people have had traumatic childhoods, we go off human beings, our attachment really changes. You know, people are cunts, aren't they? Sometimes, let's be serious. And we know that actually an object won't hurt our feelings, although it won't return our love. There is still something in that. And actually, if you got to the Eiffel Tower, if it's a really warm day, it's really warm on your skin. It's really warm to touch because of what it's made of. So it can really feel that way. And you're not going to get hurt because it's all about the structure. Some people just have a general attraction for something like that. And we're trying to find out why. And another aspect of objectophilia is something called, and I don't know whether you've heard of this, is animism. A-N-I-M. How did the Eiffel Tower say I do? It didn't. They just declare marriage. They don't really have a proper marriage certificate, and they change their name. That's what people do who feel very strongly. So animism. So animism is an interesting aspect of objectophilia, and that's why maybe we have a religious or a cultural belief that objects or a structure possess some kind of spiritual presence, or there is something in that. And there are lots of cultures who talk about different things that are really important when it comes to animism. So animism will cover things like a waterfall potentially, or a beautiful rock, or animals, or something that's been done. And that really matters. Although in 2019, there was quite a lot of research into objectophilia by Simner and two other people. Sorry, two other people. That's really bad, isn't it? And actually, objectum sexuality or objectophilia actually is more likely to be in somebody who has autism or has synesthesia. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? So is it harder if we're autistic to connect with people in different ways? Yeah, it can be. But also synesthesia is all about the way we see and experience things through color, through smell. So that would make perfect sense that somebody would find an object or a building because of how it smells and how it feels and how it is and how it presents to us, that we could have a range of feelings for that, the fence or the statue or the bridge or the fairground attraction. There was one person who married a fairground attraction, and they would follow it around the country wherever it went. Don't you remember that one a few years ago?
Sounds like stalking.
Well, the fair could argue that it is stalking, because do you want that person there? That's quite difficult, isn't it? So synesthesia can also do that. So when we have synesthesia, we can also define gender to things. We can say that my cup is female because of its form. To me, this is female. Or my keys are male. So we also define things in very different ways when we have synesthesia as well. And that can make a real difference. So that's more complex for people as well. And it's also about recognizing that. We really need to make sure that we respect people for what they think and feel. I think that's really important. So if it is linked with synesthesia and autism, there'll be more diagnoses coming. It was a really interesting piece of research in 2019. Is it absolute? Does it say it's absolutely there? It's a higher prevalence, it's a pattern, and it's just interesting. So we might feel attracted to someone, we might have different attractions to things or different things. We might be attracted to someone physically, their personality and different things. But what we all know is that fucking hell, attraction is just confusing and it's complex and it's difficult to suffer from. So we need to understand our own attraction. I can relate to that. It's like the design language on curvy cars people find really speaks to them. I find that such a talent in car design. That's so true, isn't it? So a lot of people attribute gender to a car. She's a good girl, he's a good boy, she gets me everywhere. Mainly female, actually, in cars because of curves. So we go for that stereotypical aspect. Is Stockholm Syndrome a kind of objectophilia? Yes, I guess it could be. I haven't heard it defined like that, so that's harder to say. But yeah, I guess it could be in some respects. Let me just go to the car. So like when you've got a car and you think, oh, that's really, really nice, I really like that. That's very different, isn't it? We find cars sexy. Oh my God, have you seen that Porsche? Oh my God, have you seen that? What do you think of that as well? What do we do with that? So, you know, I think that comes into it as well. With Stockholm Syndrome, I suppose it could come under it. I'm just thinking about that because I haven't heard those two put together. So if somebody has a really strong response under Stockholm Syndrome, like they maybe faint at the sight of something incredibly beautiful, overwhelming, maybe a piece of beauty or an artwork or something, then I guess it could be a form of objectophilia, like an overwhelming feeling or emotion in that moment. I haven't thought about those two put together. That's just my initial thought. I don't know if you agree with that, Catherine. What do you think? I'm not sure 100%, but I think they could be, because if you are overwhelmed by something's beauty, do you see more than just the object? Or if it's a stunning painting, I mean, when something is really beautiful, we often can be moved to tears and we can often be moved, but Stockholm Syndrome is more if somebody's going to faint or collapse. That's a bit more extreme, but again, it's all a spectrum, isn't it, I guess? So I don't know what you think about that one, Catherine. That's just, I'm not sure. That's what I'm going to kind of go with, if that's okay. So when we have attraction, how do we know if the other person is attracted to us? That's one of life's biggest questions. Does anyone else find that really hard? And I think it's even more confusing in today's terms than it ever bloody has been. I really do. I think what we do about finding someone attractive or what we want to do, fucking hell, it's quite hard. A lot of people who follow Hindu culture marry holy basil as a part of their religious beliefs in certain cases. But it's noted over the years that many people do develop feelings for the plants they may marry. What's your thought on it? So I would say that goes back to animism. And that is that in certain religions and in certain cultures that we turn around and say that we have something in that. So animism is there's something in that basil, it's holy, it's special. Therefore, we give it some kind of character or personality. It has a spiritual presence. So yeah, I would argue that that's true. A lot of people, I would say, could see a curvy 1960s Ferrari almost as a woman. Yeah, and it's very stereotypical, isn't it? It appeals to the man. It still falls into those things. I'm a little bit over all of that. I've got to be honest, especially nowadays. I think cars can be absolutely beautiful. I really understand that. But what I want from my car is it doesn't hurt the environment. I'd much rather it was electric. Now, if I can afford an electric car at some point, I'd much rather, like, I care about other things, I guess, more than just the petrol hedge type principle that comes in from years of what that's appealed to. I'm not telling you off there, Andy. I really understand that attraction. And for me, there's still a thing now of actually that's really harming the environment and I want to go somewhere else. As much as I can say, fuck me, that's beautiful. Tiger Lily, grade school theory. If they call you names and pull your hair, they like you. And you know what? At grade school, that's probably true because we don't know how to say that we're attracted or what to do. So how do we know if somebody likes us? There are physical signs of attraction that can be returned. One is pupil dilation. Our pupils tend to dilate when we're attracted to somebody. We always talk about I remember once when two people I know had come here. It was basically Brian's boyfriend when they had first started. That's my second eldest daughter, and his best mate. And Andy all of a sudden decided, and they've been together for 11 years now. This was quite a long time ago. I want to be with Brian. And poor Dom, his best friend, had to come here. And when they walked through the door, Andy looked all right. And I looked at Dom and I went, what the fuck have you taken? He looked shit-faced, and your pupils are so fucking dilated. And he went, oh my God, does it show? I was like, it couldn't be any more obvious. I'm bloody sinkholes. And he was like, oh, fuck, it's really bad that it shows. I went, what have you taken? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need water? I don't mind a glass of water. And I you know, he didn't share what he'd taken, and he was all right. But we often say that there's drugs or alcohol involved, but actually with attraction, our pupils do dilate as well. And that's a very big sign of attraction if somebody goes, boom, I really like the way that person is. There is a massive surge of oxytocin, of dopamine in our system in those moments. Just wondering what my dogs are chasing each other about. So there's happy hormones, and they can affect our pupil size. And also it's to adjust to lighting around somebody and to try and focus in on somebody. So it's quite a few biological and physiological reasons. If my dogs come in and bark, I am sorry, but we all know that I do this for free, and my dogs do come in and bark. So that happens as well. And if you think about that as well, it's also where blood vessels open up to create engorgement. Let's say if we're talking about a hard-on, or we're talking about our labia or our vulva swelling and responding to somebody, everything becomes a little bit more sensitive. We're very aware of it. So pupils will dilate as well when they process attraction. We can also blush a bit. Anyone here blush? Is anyone here a blusher? Because actually so many people really fucking hate blushing. So Liz put their hand up. Did anyone else? I didn't. So a few people did. Blushing. I mean, it's a bit of a twat, isn't it? Fucking hell. It just shows everyone how you feel. And it's like, oh God, tiger lily. So, okay, explore. So do they only like the presence of this person we feel attraction for? Not necessarily. It can be to do with light. It can be to do with alcohol. It can be to do with other things. However, when we're really staring at someone and their pupils are dilating, then there's a distinct possibility that they could be attracted to us. And of course, they could just have a very serious eye condition and all sorts of other shit. I'm just saying it's one indicator amongst many. Blushing is one. Tiger lily hates it. Their glasses fog. Lucy says, I'm a terrible blusher. Cindy says, me too. It's not as bad as now, thankfully. And in fact, people do outgrow blushing often, but some people also grow into blushing, which is a bit of a bitch. But the problem is, we can blush when we're angry. We can blush when we are humiliated. So it's also about context, that flushed skin that comes up, but it's involuntary. There is nothing you can do about it. People say, do this, do that. Not really. It's to do with adrenaline. It's to do with excitement. People can get that post-orgasmic state as well, where they brush. It's just such a basic form of communication. It's a very honest form of communication, and it's very beautiful. I'm aware that meant the dilation as a result of attraction for the person only in their presence. If you are very attracted to someone, it is more likely initially that your pupils will dilate, unless you also... How many people have had sex here or had play when somebody has turned around and said to you, fucking hell, I think your eyes are changing colour? Anyone experience that, where people say that? I think we experience it quite a lot. And that's to do with attraction and that sexual awareness that we're in at the moment. So if we're having sex with someone, people say, oh my God, your eyes have changed colour. Actually, it's more to do with pupil dilation and actual colour change of eyes. It just gives a different perception of what we see in somebody's eye. So there is that as well. So you know, that's worth thinking about. So pupil dilation is there as well. We also change our voices. Our tone changes. So cisborn men tend to deepen their voice more. They become slightly more dominant if they're sexually attracted to somebody for whatever reason. It's quite instinctive, and cisborn women tend to go slightly higher to appear slightly younger. I mean, fucking the whole young thing really worries me. Again, TikTok yesterday blew up. No, not yesterday. It was quite a few weeks ago, but I only saw it yesterday saying, you know, I'm very slow to catch up. And did you know that there was this whole thing in America where this young woman really tried it? And do you know, as a cisborn woman, especially if you are younger, and even if you're not younger, if you wear pigtails and ponytails, and if you plait them down, you are much more likely to get a higher tip. Isn't that fucking horrific? So, and actually you're likely to get a higher tip from a man. I feel slightly annoyed about that, I've got to say. I don't think it's a great thing, but it's that youthful attraction. So we tend to do, and people take us more seriously. If sometimes my kids pretend to be me if they're sorting out their mobile phone or something, because I still pay for 2 of my kids' phones because they're at uni. And I do say to them, maybe just lower your voice, because they are quite a lot younger. They're early 20s. And I just, hello, my name's Deborah Fields, rather than, there is a difference, and we take people more seriously as well, which is interesting. We usually be self-conscious in the moment, and that might reflect in our body language. Oh, for sure. Well, we're going to fidget, and I'll talk about that one as well in a minute. I don't mean to go back to objectophilia, but I was wondering if obsession is closer and how it correlates. What obsession and objectophilia, I think they're different things, because we can be obsessed about a human being the same as we can be obsessed about objectophilia. So if somebody is obsessive, I think they can be obsessive about both. So I don't think it comes in just that one, if that makes sense. And obsession is never a good thing. I'll talk a little bit about that as we're going through as well. So our voice changes as well. And we also might slow down what we're saying and show real interest, and change our accent slightly and just become more connected, really more interested. And it's really interesting how we change our voices sometimes, our accents, or even just become more intense. So we just speak a little bit more clearly if we're really interested in somebody. We actually change our fucking voice. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? And that goes also with our body language. Deb's writing attachment and relationships. I might come on to that one in a bit. Don't do that, Deb. Sorry. I mean, I'm sure. Look, come on. How many of you ever phoned one of those lines, a sex line? People phone sex lines and they don't say, hi, they just don't. When you phone a sex line, apparently I have a really flirty customer service voice. Yes, we do. And it's quite interesting how people change. You're like, fuck off, whatever. Hello, how can I help you? It's really funny what we do, don't we? Like, it's really interesting what human beings do. Nah, I don't want to. I'm not going to do that. No, it ain't proper. Hello, my name's Deborah. How can I help? Oh, yes, I'm so interested. Thank you so much. And your kids are there, or someone else who knows you is there saying, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you talking like that? What do you mean? I'm not. Yes, you are. You're putting on that phone voice. And that's to do with wanting someone actually to be attracted to you, not necessarily physically. Maybe intellectually. Cinder says, aha, I worked in banking customer service, and it was bloody annoying when people tried to flirt with me because they like my voice so much. Yes. What's the film? It's a Bruce Willis film, isn't it? One of the Reds, where he falls in love with was she a pension or a life insurance person? And he loves her voice so much. I watch too much TV and too many films, clearly, and too many TikToks. Yes, it is. Thank you very much. And that's really interesting, isn't it? That we do that. We can actually fall in love with someone through their voice. If you look on FetLife, even, there are some people who actually say, here's my voice, if they've got a good voice. Define good. Andy says, I had a customer whose receptionist used to answer the phone as if she was practicing to work on a sex line. I get it, because it is attractive to some people some of the time. Clearly, when I say attractive, I never mean all always. I've never meant all always, and I never will mean all always. And it's something I state very clearly. So our body language is there. So body language is really important. Only 7% of our communication is vocal. I am very handy, really am, in the way that I talk. I use body language all the time. It's really annoying when someone's trying to film me. I'm forever like this, and I can talk too quickly and too animated sometimes. So open body language is a real sign of attraction. We don't tend to cross our body fully. We might put something down, but we're very unlikely to cross our arms. We're more likely to be into somebody. So we'll have open body language. We might touch our skin. In some way, shape or form. Oh yeah, no, I really like that. That's true. So we might be doing something. We probably won't interrupt the person as much. You might see somebody kind of angling their pelvis towards you in a slightly different way, in the way that they sit or stand. You'd be surprised. Somebody might be nervous or stumble over words. Oh God, sorry. Oh, no, and we're not so good about that. And actually, when someone walks away, we might just sort of catch a quick look. No. Oh my God, they're looking at me. Oh my God. And then we might play with our hair. Attraction also, like, we might stroke our hair, we might play with our hair. That's a classic sign of attraction. Can also be a classic sign of fucking anxiety and stress. So please don't always think that somebody playing with their hair means they like you. They could have all sorts of other things as well. So these are potentially some aspects. If we're really fucking stressed and anxious, we might play with our hair. We might lick our lips, especially if we're looking at someone else's lips. When you often watch a TV program or a film, before someone's about to kiss, they tend to wet their lips. Eye contact, as Danny says. Yep, I hope I've just covered that. I think some of flirting is a learned behavior based on what we think is sexual from what we have seen. 100%. A lot of these things are learned because we watch it and we see it. When you watch children imitate adults, the way they dress, the way they put things on, it's imitation. Imitation is one of our most important things as to how we learn to manage socially. It might be that someone laughs. Yeah, totally. I get that. And it might be that we reach out a bit and we try and touch someone. It might just be their hand, or it might be something, or it might be that we pick something up and we might just play with it quite a lot, or we might put it in our mouths in some way, shape or form. You watch it in porn films all the time, don't you? It might be that someone takes down their hair. Boom. I had a cat that always licked her lips if I did first. Again, mirrored behavior. Constant fidgeting of arms always reveals true emotions. Yeah, but the problem here is interpretation. So when we interpret an emotion or an action, we think it reveals an emotion we want to see. It could be actually if I'm continuously licking my lips, and you might think, oh, she's really into me, and then I put lip salve on. I wasn't into you, I just needed to put lip salve on. Or it could be that, I'm really nervous because I'm fidgeting or doing something. I could be playing with my finger. You might think, oh, that's really that looks like she wants to stroke someone's cock. It could just be that I'm really anxious or I've got an itchy finger. It's our interpretation, isn't it? And of course, when we're hopeful, we interpret things the way we want to interpret things. Kelly says, I have the trick where I make a bad joke and check if they play along or not. Works most of the time to know if they are stressed or not. Fair, but we've got to be careful when we trick people, because what's happening now? Do we want this to happen? And what happened? It's quite interesting. You'll also find that someone might just lean into you. Like I said, they just come a little bit closer. How someone sits and stands with us, especially when it comes to power. If they move their chair closer to us, that can be attraction, or they want to go over. I mean, therapists as well have a habit. I've now got an itchy finger. This isn't anything weird. Therapists as well are taught about mirroring body language and what that means on mirroring behavior. So, and it happens quite naturally. So if somebody leans back and crosses their arms, says, yeah, no, I'm really interested. Are you? But then the other person might lean back and cross their arms. Or you find if you just lean forward and hold your head, people do mirror you. We naturally mirror, we naturally adopt other people's behaviors and mannerisms. Couples tend to do this a lot, or polycules, if you spend a lot of time together. People do. Andy used to have this habit. So Andy is my daughter's boyfriend, and I spend a lot of time with Andy and Brian. And Andy, when he wanted something, whether you like this or not, I'm not interested if you like it a lot, it doesn't matter. But he would say, no, I don't want to. I really want one of those. And he would adopt this slight baby voice, and we'd all get into the habit of it. And my eldest daughter's like, would you stop fucking talking like that? All of you used to drive her mad. No, Darcy, I don't want to. Stop it. She used to hate it. But it's amazing how you pick these things up. Of course, if we're into littles, we like that. But if I lean back, says Kelly, that means I'm getting more comfortable with a person, which is a good thing in my books. Yes, it can, especially if we're willing to expose ourselves, expose our chest, expose our midriff, and we're very comfortable in certain situations. So that is very different as well. Animals do it, it's quite submissive, but it also means comfort. It means I am safe here, so that's something I can do. So we mirror people when we're comfortable, we expose when we're comfortable, we mimic. And for some people that can work quite well. There was a really interesting piece in Psychology Today a couple of weeks ago where it was saying, do opposites really attract? And although they might attract, actually, if you're too opposite, those relationships don't tend to last. There have to be some similarities. And that said, we develop mirrors and different things, like a cat showing its belly, yes, or a dog, cosmopolite, anything like that, an animal. One of my dogs, Goose, she tends to jump up when you come in. So I've taught her to, I stop down, and she'll go straight on her back and show her tummy. That's not quite what I meant, but you rub her tummy. And I said, do you want more? And she has to do this. And now she does more. But yeah, she's so comfortable. I'm teaching her not to jump up. So now she goes like this. So, and again, that's to do with safety and how we feel about things. Sometimes people will, look, I hate my hair, right? I hate my hair because of cancer and because of chemo. It's not thick enough. It's not there enough. So I tend to play with my hair quite a lot. However, when somebody plays with their hair from that perspective, some people sometimes are just trying to make sure that they look okay. They're checking things. It used to be that people used to go and check their makeup or check their suit or check their tie. People do that completely publicly. It's changed. That's one of phenomenal changes that we see in society, where people will redo their lipstick or check their tie or do something along those lines very publicly now. So it's different. So we have to check, does that mean? But we do. Lip balm comes into this as well when it comes to lipstick and stuff. I fucking put lip balm on all the time. It's my addiction. And the more you do it, the worse it gets. It doesn't mean I want you. It doesn't mean I fancy you. It means I need to put fucking lip salve on. So again, it's down to interpretation. So please be careful. Somebody is also likely to get slightly hotter, slightly flushed. You know, we talk about, you know, steamy, hot. We talk about those words, don't we, when it comes to attraction. So we know that that's there. Our body temperature rises, which was also talking about blood and how it moves, and also about pupil dilation. So when your skin is flushed and you're blushing, there could be some attraction. It could also be, especially if you're in your late 40s, you're on a fucking hot flush. You're not attracted at all. It's just the menopause. So again, don't make assumptions about human beings. The amount of hot flushes I have, because of the drugs I'm on after cancer, I am permanently in menopause for the next 2 years. I think I'll still carry on taking drugs. So sometimes I'm like, ooh. And you might think, oh, I think Debs quite likes me. No, I'm just having a hot flush. However, it can be. Eye contact does matter. Holding eye contact is probably more important. But also, oh, I know, love a good hot flush. I've just bought myself another special night dress that balances temperature. I tell you, so sexy when I go to bed. I worry more about the hot flush than anything else. I'm like, oh God, this is horrific. And in this heat, it's been absolutely horrific too. I don't fancy you. However, what we know is that prolonged eye contact, when we really look at someone for quite a long time, over candlelit dinners, different lighting, that is also a real sign of some form of attraction or interest, at least in some way, shape or form. So we might break it. It can feel very awkward. I mean, I do a lot of work online. Near enough all of my clients are online now, 98%, 99%. And I find I can't look all the time at somebody. I feel fucking mental. If you're in a normal meeting, you'd be doing stuff anyway like this, wouldn't you? You wouldn't necessarily be looking at the person all the time. You might have a drink. You might write a note. You might do something. So this is way too intense. I look away a lot and I have a look. And of course, what you've got to remember as well, there are people that cannot hold eye contact. There are people that may have vision problems. There are people that feel insecure. There are people that have social anxiety. There are people on the spectrum. So eye contact doesn't define everything, Kelly, but I do focus on making the person in front more comfortable. For example, it's okay, you look beautiful, and to reassure them that the conversation is going great. That way I find people opening up more rather than being stiff and conscious. And also it's really important though to find out, Kelly, if that's the sort of compliment that somebody wants. Because actually sometimes when someone says you look beautiful, I go, no, I don't, so we really have to understand what a compliment will do to somebody. Oh, thanks, but fucking hell, I just feel tired. You know, it depends. So we need to understand what sort of compliment somebody wants to hear. Lily says, or it could just be, what am I doing here? Yeah, I agree. That's that discomfort, isn't it? That can be social anxiety. It can be awkwardness. It can be anyone who's on any form of spectrum, that we don't look at somebody. And it could be our eyes are aching. It could be everything. It's also good to check. Yes, I agree, Kelly. It's always good to check as to what somebody likes in some way, shape or form. So all of those things really matter. That chatting, that interest in somebody. And, you know, we see a lot of films like He's Just Not That Into You, which is a classic film. If somebody's into you, they're into you. If they're not, they're not. You can't make someone into you. We can take the lead in making plans and do stuff, and we can be attentive. But if it's not returned, why are you carrying it on? And that's really important. So if attractiveness is just going one way, I think that's a real issue for us. I don't like it. So there's no foolproof way to find out if somebody likes you. There is only one way, and that is you have to ask them. Are you interested in me? Are you interested in having another conversation? I'd really like to carry this on. Anybody who does that 3-day rule or any of those books that were in the 80s, get a fucking grip. Just speak to somebody. You don't need to wait 3 days to make them want you so much more or anything else. That's just a bizarre piece of behavior. So we just have to say, if you're going to connect with somebody and you feel attracted to somebody, we need to be aware of that. We just need to ask, does this person like me? What we know is when we're attracted to somebody, especially when we start to fall in love, is our brains start to fuck up totally. Love is blind. That's a classic. Attraction can be blind. We'll go through those 3 definitions a little bit later as well. 3-day rule, what's that? There used to be some books out that used to say things, Explorer, like don't contact the person for 3 days after a date, make them wait. Make them wait 24 hours. 3 days used to be quite an extreme rule. Can anyone remember what that book was called? Because it was really big and it was mainly for men at the time. It was one of those, if you want to be a real man type fucking books. Yeah, it was all over the world. It was a massive piece. They're still around, some of them. They are absolutely horrific. They're like rules on how to make people like you, how to make women be more attractive to you. And they're mainly aimed at cis men, especially insecure cis men and people who really want someone to be attracted. And the 3-day rule used to be, if you go out on a date with someone, don't phone them for 3 days. Because that way they'll be pining after you. Fuck off. They'll be pining after you and they'll be so grateful to get your call that they'll be so much more willing to go out with you. I think Will Smith states that rule in Hitch too. Does he? That's an interesting, I'm not sure. I mean, that's quite an 80s film, isn't it, as well? Is it 80s or 90s Hitch? I can't remember. That whole as well of lean in 90 and then they come the other 10, all of those. It can be messy in case people who have RSD. It can be messy for anybody. Why wait 3 days? If you like someone, let them know, give them an opportunity to say yes or no. And if you don't like someone, tell them immediately too. That's okay too. Be civil, be kind. I did it yesterday, day before yesterday. I put a picture up and then I got slated. Somebody reported it and it got taken down. I was chatting to somebody, quite a nice conversation. Everything in my guts was, no, this person, something isn't quite right. Something is not quite right. I had that feeling. And I said, thank you so much for the conversation. I don't think this is going to work out for me. I really wish you well. Good luck. And I got 3 text messages back that went, are you serious? Then it went, what the fuck? And then it went, are you fucking mental? Or something along those lines. And I just wrote back and said, well, I'm really glad I followed my instincts because clearly they were right there. And then I got this huge dick pic, which everyone said, I think that's been amended and played with. I got this huge dick pic and all he could say was, this is what you're missing out on riding, love.
It was bloody ugly, I must say.
It was just, I mean, wow, fucking hell. And what was interesting is I normally have a lot to say, but I didn't this time. I just said, I've reported that to police because under the new law that's just come in, you can actually be jailed for up to 2 years for unsolicited pictures. It's considered cyber flashing. And I have actually sent that to the police. Be really interesting to know if they'll do anything, because I think at some point we need to start making sure that people can't do these things because it's not okay. Valkyrie Rising says, I'm like chocolate. If you leave it unattended for 3 days, it won't be there when you come back. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. My sister always laughs when she comes into my house because I've got a pot that's maybe got little bits of chocolate in or biscuits and stuff. Like, how can you leave it? That's not normal, because I won't always eat it. Anna said, wow. Sarah Zwati said, well done, Deb. Thank you. I reported it to 101 as a crime. I still haven't heard back, but I am going to push that sort of shit. I love to respond to that with, sorry, my fave toy is bigger than that. Do you know what? I didn't even want to give him the pleasure. I just reported it because I have the spoons to do that. And lots of people don't have the spoons to do that. And I love the fact that I can, because I can. And it's important sometimes to hold boundaries when other people can't, for me, because he's going to do that to someone and someone's going to get really upset. And Cosmopolite really loves that you said that, Valkyrie. So that's pretty cool. So if you find someone attractive and your palms are sweaty and you're shivering and you maybe made a complete twat of yourself, your heart is probably pumping in your chest, and we feel really strongly, we think that love comes from the heart, but actually it's not. It's all from the brain. It just sends signals to your body that fuck you up, something chronic. So when you look at some research that's been done by somebody called Helen Fisher, romantic love is broken down into 3 categories. And I've written about this before. It's lust, attraction, and attachment. So they have their own set of hormones that run with each of those when we look at lust, attraction, and attachment. So love, when we look at it, is those 3. So let's have a look at that. So what sort of hormones we've got? We've got testosterone, we've got estrogen, they drive lust. When we look at dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, they are connected to attraction, and oxytocin and vasopressin mediate attachment. So they're very different types. So testosterone and estrogen go for lust. I'm not feeling as lustful as I used to be. And I 100% know that I take estrogen inhibitors on a regular basis. I'm really enjoying taking the estrogen inhibitors from this perspective. It makes me much less likely to make mistakes. And it makes me just look at someone and say, really? Do you think that shit would work? I actually prefer my brain with less estrogen at the moment. I really do, because we're under the mercy of some of these drugs that really impact our brains. So the things that are connected to attraction are dopamine. Red flags go. Norepinephrine, boom, 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 boom. Let's get there. And serotonin. So that's interesting. And oxytocin, which is just love with a touch of vasopressin. They look at attachment. So when we purely have lust, we're often looking for sexual gratification in some way, shape, or form. And that's evolutionary. Sorry, but it is. That comes into it. You know, we need to reproduce. We need to fuck. How do you feel about the saying, if they give you butterflies and make your heart race, it's not the right kind of love? I think it's the wrong expression, Tiger Lily. If they give you butterflies and your heart race, it is lust. It isn't love. It is lust. That's what it is in that moment. So if your heart is racing and you're feeling really excited, that's your norepinephrine. That's that thing, you're feeling attraction in that moment. That's part of love, but it isn't love. So it's not the wrong or the right kind of love. It's attraction a little bit, but it's mainly lust. So I think we need to learn the difference between those things. That's all. And that's why I think it's really good to talk about these things and understand that if this is driven by this chemical, then I understand it more. And that's what can help us control our attraction and feel better and start to work differently. So if we do need to reproduce and we do need to do all these things because it's really important, how much of our brains takes control instead of us being able to stay on top of that and say, no, I need to do something different here. I need to be aware. And that's quite hard. So the hypothalamus is really important in this because it creates estrogen and testosterone in each of us from the testes and the ovaries. And we often stereotype those of that's a male one, that's a female one, but we both have them. We all have them. All genders have them. Somebody who's intersex, somebody who's asexual, somebody who's transitioning, we all have them. Human beings have them in varying amounts, regardless of how you identify. We all have this shit. So that's quite interesting because testosterone is a really big figure role player in libido. Estrogen, less pronounced. However, estrogen is a big influencer when people who have ovaries ovulate. And then we find different people attractive at different times for different reasons. So when we're ovulating, we find different people attractive, but we'll go on to that a little bit later as well. So the problem with love and lust and attraction is our prefrontal cortex, neocortex, the bit that helps us think a little bit better and be kind of more sensible, fucking shuts off. So when we're feeling all this lust and this love and attraction, your brain goes, I fucking give up. I'm not helping you. And that's really dangerous. That's why attraction is a real fucking bitch, and love and lust, especially if we're suffering from all three, our brain switches off and we don't function in the same way, nor as well. So we've got to be really careful. So we can lust for someone we're attracted to, but we might not always be attracted to the person we lust over. So lust is slightly separate. Attraction involves the reward pathways in the brain. So the first few weeks or months of a relationship feel really exhilarating and quite, they're catastrophic really, aren't they? Because we make ourselves more tired. We're so interested in somebody. We stay up really late when really we can't afford to because we're absolutely shattered. We don't work properly. And dopamine, which is produced by your hypothalamus, that we know that is so connected to the reward pathway. It's the same sort of shit when you take a drug. It's the same sort of thing when you're having sex and doing different things. It's a reward pathway. When you get high levels of dopamine and you get norepinephrine as well, and that's that's released during attraction, we end up feeling giddy, we end up feeling heady, we end up feeling so many things, and we won't eat as much, we won't sleep as well, and we can manage it. But if you're that in love or that attracted that you can't eat and you can't sleep, eventually your brain has to turn that down because it really impacts our fight, flight, freeze, friend, fuck, flop, faux, fawn response. And that's really dangerous. So we're stressed. And actually, through brain scans, what we know when people feel this way is that the ventral tegmental area of the caudate nucleus go crazy. So what that means is, what does that mean? All those fucking stupid words means that your brain looks like it's going off like the fucking 4th of July. If we feel neutral to somebody, our brains don't go off like that. Debs, here's a hypothetical question. What if someone was in a dark room, blindfolded, and say 5 different people touch them, all consensual, of course? Have you seen dark dating? Have you seen that blind dating one where they do put people in rooms and you don't see each other? That's already out there as a dating show. Could the blindfolded person pick up stronger in one person than the other? Is there some kind of blind connection? The answer is yes, because there's all those other forms of attraction. So it could be the way we talk to each other. It could be the voice. And all of that is connected to attachment theory and our brain firing off because, oh my God, I really love the way they listen to me. Or, oh, their voice, it was just like so soothing. And their touch, the way they touch me, because some people are really awkward in touch, aren't they? And some people are really sensual in touch. Hi, rather than, all right. So we feel differently about different people at different times. And it's not just about what we see. Attraction isn't just about what we see. The brain is fired off not just by what we see, it's by the feelings that we have. And feelings are created by all sorts of different connections. So there is actually, oh my God, so what's it called? There are a couple of, I watch way too much TV, guys, if you notice, and too much reality television, fucking hell. There was an actual show that you don't see anybody and they can have dates with each other and they're in separate rooms and they have dates through the rooms. It's American, and eventually they meet the person and actually some people go, fucking hell. It does. There you go. I'll try and find out what it is. Was it Love is Blind? Thank you, iPhone 5. Thank you very much. Netflix. Oh, is it on Netflix? Okay, I watched it on Sky. Cosmopolite. I was in a pattern of reenacting trauma with people I was attracted to. I think a lot of it was driven by my brain chasing dopamine. Yes, and also by your brain. When we reenact trauma, what we're trying to do is create a different end. That whole thing about when Einstein says, we repeat stuff because we want a different ending, and that makes a really big difference as well. Also, attraction is interesting because it reduces slightly serotonin, which we know is connected to sleep, and we know it's connected to mood as well. So when we're very obsessive, when we have OCD, we also have low levels of serotonin. So that goes a little bit back to that question about obsession. When we really, really fancy someone and we love someone, because attraction reduces serotonin, we can be more likely to be obsessed about them. So that's the scientific impact of that. The thing we've discovered before, the kidnapper falling in love with a kidnapper. Yes, found Love is Blind on Netflix, and it appears to have 2 seasons. It's actually really interesting to watch. You're all going to go and watch it now, potentially. Fucking love reality TV. I'm a little bit strange. Yeah, we used to call it Stockholm Syndrome. But actually, when you have a flood of chemicals trying to keep you alive, because your fight, flight, flight, your Fs are all triggered, your sympathetic nervous system is going off, your serotonin is going down. We actually form an attachment very quickly to somebody, and we are trying to stay alive, which forms a form of attraction and even potentially love. While attraction and other things matter, it's actually attachment that makes the difference when it comes to attraction and lust. If love is attraction, lust, and attachment, it's attachment that keeps our relationships going. I have OCD and ADHD and stopped taking stimulants because I felt like they were exacerbating my obsessive compulsive behavior. I felt super hyper focused on certain people. Yeah, and it can be the same with SSRIs sometimes, if you think about that. So what an SSRI does is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So what that means that it does is if you have, I can't believe what I'm talking about tonight, so much chemistry, sorry if I've lost anyone. If you've got your neurons and your synapses, the way the message is passed over, I imagine it, if you imagine you've just come all over this person's face, it's a bit of a splatter gun. You know, don't get it in my eyes. The likelihood of that definitely happening is low. So when, I can't believe I'm describing synapses and neurons like this, but let's go for it. It's a little bit like come all over someone's face. But so what we do is we create hormones and serotonin to help kind of send that message across. It directs better. And because we believed, notice the past tense, that because we believed that serotonin in the brain would help stop depression, maybe not, because we believe that for so long that the serotonin stays in the brain. So that's going to impact what we do there as well. So that's going to have an impact on us. So there's more serotonin in the brain. So actually our appetite is likely to go up. Our mood is likely to go up, and we're not going to get so obsessive potentially. Would you say that is common for people who have PTSD to follow the same? I think it depends on the symptoms of the PTSD, whether it's CPTSD, whether it's PTSD, whether it's a one-off situation or it's been very consistent forms of abuse and trauma for the person. It also depends on how the person handles trauma. Poppy, that was not the analogy they used in any of my pharmacology classes. I know, but it's better, isn't it? It makes way more sense. It's like you splatter cum over someone's face. Multi-directional, what a mess. I think it's easier. I think we should go for that one. I think that's the way we should say it. So when it comes to attachment, when we start to develop attachment, we've got two different hormones that come in here a little bit more. So we've got oxytocin and vasopressin. And when we have oxytocin, that's called the love drug, the cuddle drug. It's released in sex, it's released in breastfeeding, and it's released in childbirth, which is interesting as a group of activities altogether, but it's trying to create an attachment to another human being. We know when we breastfeed that we're firing each other's brains up. So the person who's feeding and the baby that's feeding, the brain's fired up. It's really interesting. We've got hundreds of firing up going on. It's so incredulous to watch. If you see it on an fMRI scan, it's so interesting. And they are precursors to bonding, and that makes a real difference. So that's really important. So we have a separate area for attachment in our brain, and we have a separate area for lust. And attraction is important. We are attached to family, but we're not necessarily attracted to family. So we have to think about that. And there's different aspects in the brain that influence us in different ways. So the nucleus accumbens, when we look at it, that's when we're madly in love, but we're recently dumped. So we don't feel very good about that. The ventral pallidum, the ventral pallidum, fuck me. That's when we're madly in love 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later. That's how we feel very strongly about it. Have to head out to a non-recorded event, so I'll catch the rest of the recording. Thanks so much. I feel dumped. Just not attracted to me anymore, Mark. Okay, bye. And then the ventral tegmental area is the new love, and that's where we feel really differently. And these brains are all, our brains are so fascinating. I fucking love neuroscience. It's very clever the way it impacts us. And we just need to understand. We need to understand that. So all these hormones are released, especially around attraction, lust, and attachment. So then actually it fucks us up. We can become jealous, we're erratic, we're irrational, we can go bloody mad. And actually those hormones are responsible for that. So if your dopamine is really firing, it also controls the good and the bad, because a reward pathway isn't just about good. Part of the problem with drugs, isn't it? It really isn't just about good. So if you're feeling good because you've just had a little bit of cocaine, or you've just had something, your dopamine signaling is going to last for a hell of a lot longer, which means you get a temporary high. In a way, when we're attracted to somebody, that's our brain working a similar way to addiction. That's why we feel very strongly about someone. Oh my God, I need to go closer. Or, oh my God, if they notice me, okay. We act a little bit like an addict, actually, because our brain is having a really fucking similar response. And if somebody dumps us or leaves us, oh my God, it really hurts us. And that's part of it. We have to go through the withdrawal. And people really don't understand that. It is also a chemical withdrawal when you are dumped. And you need to go through it. You can't make it any better. That's why often when we eat something, it makes us feel better. Or when we drink something, it feels better. Or when we take drugs, it makes us feel better, because your whole brain is changing. So we know that MDMA and GHB are connected to oxytocin, that so different drugs act differently on our brains. However, they're not always good. So it can be really positive oxytocin, but can be really responsible for us not feeling so good as well. That's really important to realize. So please be aware of the sort of responses that you have, because oxytocin can be a real double-edged sword when it comes to that. We can get really loving about what's happening and really love our own. So I don't know if you've ever heard the term ethnocentrism. So that means people like us. And oxytocin is part of the problem with ethnocentrism, where people like us, we like people like us, we don't like those people, they're different to us. And that's one of the connections to oxytocin. So again, we have to be aware, we like people like us. So it is a double-edged sword. We have to be really aware. So there's no great formula for love. There's no great formula for attraction, but we need to be really aware of these formulas in our brain so that we can say, wow, I can't see what the fuck I should be doing right now. We say, the madness of love, the height of love, truly madly deeply. And that's so love and lust and attraction and attachment really get in the way of these things. So all of those things, when all of our emotions that are building up in this for our survival, for everything that we want to do, it's not actually very good for us. I spent all my high school years totally attracted to one girl and never had the bottle to ask her out. In a sense, I got more used to the sensation of unrequited love, maybe some early masochistic tendencies, but I feel I lost time as me because of it. Yeah, probably. That probably became quite, if something never quite happens, it's quite normal to develop massive crushes on other human beings. So we have to really be careful. And there is a real difference between courtship and trying to find someone, there's a very old-fashioned word, and actually having sex or being with someone. And we can get really stuck in that by ourselves as well. So it's really, they operate in tandem, but they're complicated, aren't they? Because we want to win that person over, but we're so scared of doing anything that we don't do anything. So it can be really dangerous for us. So we can talk about it being a motivation system, not just a lust system, because we should do this, is what you should do. Well, you're brought up to think that, aren't you? You're supposed to get married and have 2.2 children. Are you? Actually, when you're abandoned and you don't feel good, all those chemicals in your brain can lead to suicide, can lead to killing someone else, can lead to stalking type behavior, can lead to clinical depression. It can lead to a lot of things. So there's a lot of things that go on when we love and we lust and we feel attracted to somebody. And the neurobiological state we're in during attraction and all of those things is so difficult and so contradictory to the phases and statuses that come afterwards that we're just raging. It's really not very good for us. It's good for social bonding. It's good to make somebody really attractive to us. But the idea is that while we're having all those chemicals, is that we don't see all the negative sides. I don't know if any of you have ever watched How I Met Your Mother. And they talk about the glass ceiling. Have any of you ever watched that series? I don't know if you've seen it. I've spoken about it a few times, but there's a point where one of them makes a joke about when the glass shatters, he says, well, no, because of her laugh. And he's like, what do you mean her laugh? What's fucking horrific? I mean, they don't swear as much as I'm swearing. It's like, no. Or Lily chewing. Yeah, exactly. Like, no, that's really unattractive. No, it's not. You hear the sound of breaking glass. And he's like, oh my God, that's an awful laugh. But what we want is all these drugs inside us, all these hormones to say, it doesn't matter. Kelly asks, what do you call when we feel weirdly connected with a certain person that we might see daily, for example, at work, but we don't really interact, but we still feel connected and we want to know more about them? But it's not lust or it's not physical attraction, but a weird gut feeling. And sometimes because of fear approaching them, there's always the fear of fucking things up. That falls under so many of the headings that we talked about in attraction. So it could be any of those at all that I discussed earlier. However, what that can also be psychologically is a form of attachment recognition, and it can be projection. So sometimes we put on other people what we've experienced or think or feel in some way, shape or form, and we think that they're going to respond in some similar way or do something. Honestly, Kelly, if you feel very strongly about that, it's really important that you work out what you want to do. What do you want to do about that? What does it mean to you? Because the longer, a bit like Andy was saying earlier, we can just keep going for ages, and actually it really fucks up our lives. Because I think I'm just writing a piece on expectation. Expectation is the anathema of all relationships, of all goodness and all okayness. It is a fuck up of a situation and relationships and everything else as well, because we have this hope and this expectation that, oh my God, that person might say this, so I'm really frightened that they won't, so I don't do anything. And actually sometimes even making a decision and feeling some pain and feeling some rejection is better than not doing anything at all. As Andy just said, he feels like he wasted a lot of his years. He also ended up going out with girls in her circle just to be near her. Did that work? I mean, does it work? Oh, poor girls and poor you. I mean, kids, we've just got no idea, have we? We know that norepinephrine is such a cunt as well. We just got energy and we can do these things and we can't keep them going. We speak to somebody we fancy till 4 o'clock in the morning and then we get up for work the next day or we get up for school the next day. You can't keep going. And that level of impact on our whole neurobiological system actually would kill us if we carried it on. So it all starts to go down, especially as we start to bond. And the more we bond, it alleviates stress. We get a little bit more security and we feel good. That's when we don't mind some of these things. And that makes a difference as well. All of our hormones, honestly, it's so interesting. So that pair bonding that happens, and that's where vasopressin really comes in. And there's quite a lot of research into pair bonding. The most famous one is over voles, prairie voles. I've written about this before. The prairie vole is a monogamous creature. What are prairie voles? What would they be? Mammals? I don't know. And they are monogamous and they stay together till one dies and they pair bond. And the prairie vole male is very paternal and very caring and very look after, and they stay together until one dies, not unlike swans as well. So very aggressive when it comes to other males if they come anywhere near them. And there's lots of vasopressin and dopamine. It impacts our social behavior. So people can be overprotective, especially if they have a protective attraction, if you put all of those things together, and it all gets in the way. When we add kink in, oh, is that the piece of research on prairies voles? Thank you very much. So when we add things like kink in, what happens to us and what happens around polyamory as well is the circle that we then try and go in. I was arguing with someone a little bit about FetLife the other day because they were just going, yes, question. Oh. The problem is that some of us want different things from relationships. If you think that in the world, that around 6% of people are LGBTQI, people who are kinky, and I don't just mean 50 shades kinky, I don't just mean I like a little bit of slap and tickle, really kinky or want a power exchange relationship and or polyamory are even less. We make our world incredibly small. To then want all of this, and attraction makes it really difficult, really complex. And it's really hard. Where do we find these people and what do we do? So we go to places like FetLife, we go to places like Field, oh God, fucking hate Field. We go to places like Hinge. I'm on it, but I fucking hate it. We get on OkCupid, but we also get on Dating Kinky or Whippler or Kinkler or Kinkbook or all of those ones that are out there because we're trying to find somebody. However, a lot of our attraction as well, actually, I should mention this as well, that actually a lot of smell really matters. We have pheromones, and more deeper than pheromones, we actually talk to people differently through smell, and smell really matters. And we can't get that when someone is blind, but a smell is really important. If somebody puts a cologne or a perfume or an aftershave or anything as well, some people talk about that can inhibit attractiveness or it can enhance attractiveness. If somebody projects, oh, I really love that smell, it can also go against attractiveness. Oh my God, my mum wore that all the time. You're out. But it does, there's a really interesting pieces of research around smell, and what smell really tells us is oppositional DNA. So we're more likely to be attracted to somebody the more oppositional their DNA is, because we are more likely to create an offspring that will survive. So smell really matters, what we smell like. Yardley. How old are you? My mum was opium. God, it was such a strong smell. I was talking about that today, actually, somebody, such a strong smell. So attraction very much comes from smell as well. And bad smells. If somebody has really bad breath or they haven't washed, it really does turn us off. So hygiene really matters too. So smells really matter. So we're not quite sure, too old, obviously, maybe. And it's interesting what someone deems as attractive isn't what somebody else thinks. But very random input here, but my ex-boyfriend in high school drowned his shirt in his cologne and hid it in my wardrobe after we broke up. I mean, is he all right there? That smell makes me feel sick now. Yeah, I don't, that's just, yeah. But also, like, for comfort, I remember when I started running these workshops at the beginning of lockdown, one of the things I advise people to do is sleep in their t-shirt. And send their t-shirt to their partners, for example, so we get a nice smell. I'm not after somebody sending their BO or anything, or their bad smells anywhere. I mean, you could use panties as well. Like you could use boxer shorts. Sending your smell to someone actually can make you feel more connected if you love and like and lust after that person. I had this girlfriend who wanted me to wear the same perfume as her father. Maybe she should come and talk to me. However, if that's consensual and you're having a great time, that's okay too. It really is. If it's not hurting anyone, it's okay. But also, it's really interesting because we can get really anxious and very stressed about all of these things, can't we? We get so worried about losing someone and losing the attraction. But what's interesting, our brains can synthesize happiness when we don't get what we want. So we tend to really bizarrely find people who are going to leave us more attractive. Oh my God, they might go, I've got to keep them. Actually, that's a really nice human. Why don't you stay with them instead? They're a lot nicer and they're a lot kinder and they're a lot more empathic and a lot more sympathetic. So as well, I did talk about studies that talked about fertility windows and estrogen and when women ovulate as well. So again, we pick up smells differently at that time and we find different people attractive. So often when women, I'm going to use women for vagina owners or vagina owners at that time, cis-born women, if you have a vagina that ovulates, if you have, sorry, your vagina doesn't ovulate, your womb, whole thing, your ovaries ovulate. If you are ovulating, you will find someone of a more masculine trait, more appealing in that moment, because it's the whole thing about look after, care for, want a baby. We're still ruled by some of this shit, which is why we need to understand it, because when we understand it, we can make different choices. And then when that time period changes, we are more attracted to somebody with softer features, kinder, different. And that's just fascinating, isn't it? We're still ruled by some really fucking basic stuff. I remember knowing a girl who loved Kuros aftershave. So the next time I knew we'd all be together as a group, I doused myself in it. Oh, dousing. Andy, you've done some interesting shit, mate. That's all. You have, like, yeah. So I think we've got to be careful about what we do. I really do. And about how we feel about things, because we do have to be a bit careful. So, okay, about attracted to people who are going to leave us. Okay, so yes, what we know is our brain will synthesize happiness for us when we're not feeling it. And when we're scared and somebody is about to potentially leave us, sometimes we're like, oh my God, I've got to hold on to that person. So we tend to want to hold on. That's also connected to our attachment patterns and how that works as well. So we do have to be a little bit careful rather than pulling back and saying, actually, do I want this person or do I want them because they're leaving? We often find someone attractive who, I told somebody on Telegram the other day that I'm sorry, I'm out. And what I found interesting is he carried on talking to me. He says things and it's really interesting, like why? But he's all about telling me, do I not want to fight for his dominance and his attraction because he's talking to 5 women, so I should want to compete. I don't. Clearly, I don't have enough estrogen. And where I went is, talk to them, mate, honestly, because this feels like hard work. You've got to talk to them, that's fine. And he probably is Dom Juan or Dom John or whatever. No, thank you. Like, honestly, tired, stressed. Seems like a really nice guy, but I'm not in some competition and I don't want to feel that way. He doesn't owe me a fucking thing. He's never met me before in my life. It doesn't matter. I haven't even met him, but I just don't want to feel like I'm in some form of competition, especially when I get the feeling that person wants the people fighting over them. I'm sorry, you need to be more interested in me. I'm not going to throw myself under the bus for you, Dom Juan here. Thank you, Cosmopolite. So there are differences in our fertility windows, and then that changes. For example, when you start to go through the menopause, that helps as well. That makes a real difference. A lot of these science and romance and things are really, really focused on heterosexual couples, unfortunately, or heterosexual relationships. But they don't really talk about why any of us who are LGBTQI+ don't end up with different people. So there was an interesting study that looked, I think it's 500 homosexuals and 365 heterosexuals, 370, something like that. Not sure of the figures, sorry. But the long-term partners that we choose actually do go against evolution eventually. So that's good. We are learning. So science doesn't hold all the answers. Relationships are something that we have to learn to adapt to and have a look at. But it's immediacy as well. A lot of us want something now when we want it delivered and we want to be in a relationship. There's a real phenomenon at the moment of, we're in a relationship, but we've only had 4 conversations, and that's not healthy either. And it doesn't account for our taste changing. It doesn't account for how we grow in our 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s, because we're very different people. And it's really nice to have your stomach flip when you are attracted to somebody, but that's not what keeps a relationship together, and neither does love. I see a lot of couples and polycules who still love each other, but it doesn't mean their relationship's going to work. It needs so much more. We tolerate some really interesting behavior when we're attracted to somebody, when we love somebody. Why do we tolerate it? And we all have these different tolerance levels as to what we will accept and what we will not. And I'm really curious about that. Why do we all have such different levels in different ways? You mentioned unrequited love earlier that may contribute to attraction for unavailable people. So the work is to go back and heal the past, or what's the treatment? Yeah, I really believe that. But of course, do you know what? I'm going to say really good therapy. Of course I am, because I'm a fucking therapist. However, we can heal in relationship as well. When somebody comes into therapy, they're looking for an unmet need to be met, really. And if we can get that unmet need met in a partnership, that can be very good as well. That can be really helpful. So it can change the way we heal, and it can change our dynamics and make us feel a little bit better. That can help. But of course, if that then breaks down again, that's really difficult. We tend to repeat patterns, as I said, so our attachment patterns really matter here. How we attach, whether we're anxious, avoidant, secure. There are about 20 other definitions nowadays. My girlfriend, hang on, Alex, I'll come back to that one in a minute. So it's not that we're stupid. It's not that we're naive. We need change. We need to develop that. And we need to look at what is it about that person? Why are we attracted? Do we need to heal the past? Sometimes we can go too much into healing the past. And I really do say that as a therapist as well. You know, you can spend 10, 20, 30 years on this sort of shit. How much healing do you need to do before you get into a relationship? The answer for that one for me is when you know you're not going to hurt yourself, when you know you can manage a breakup, when you know you can manage and that you'll be okay. If you are only attracted to unavailable people, they're not going to work with you to meet your need, are they? No. If you are only attracted to unavailable people, then you have to look at what you're afraid of. And it sounds like, if I'm not talking about you, City Dance, because you might be talking about somebody else, and I don't make this shit personal. If we're attracted to unavailable people, it's because we're unavailable. And if we're unavailable, we need to look at why. What are we scared of? What's the vulnerability? What's the risk? And if we only find emotionally unavailable people attractive, it's because we don't really want our needs met, because we're scared. And that's an awful lot of fear involved there. Is that a symptom of the new way of life, Andy? Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's immediacy, it's ease. We can go on, we find the next person. When I look at dating apps, and believe me, I'm on a lot of them, I am, and sometimes I come off and sometimes I'm on them again. It really varies, and I'm spending more time off them than ever because I just find the people not okay in so many ways. They have incredible expectations of what they want. It's amazing where you see somebody who says, you know, I just want something really casual, but I want everything in it, and I want no commitment, but I want you to give me your all. And you're like, which one do you want? Where does that work? And I think people are really confused about what they want and how that is. Alex asked, my girlfriend likes to smell my body odor after the gym session every day. Is it weird? Nope, it's incredibly common and really normal. Some people like the smell of body odor. Sometimes it's their pheromones and the different things underneath, and sometimes it's the body odor itself. If you're not attracted to somebody, you're very unlikely to like their body odor. If you walk down Waitrose or Asda, wherever you shop, and you smell someone else's body odor, it lingers and it really repulses most people. But if you actually are very attracted to that person, there's a chance that you're not repulsed by that. They probably have spreadsheets about what they want. Healing until you can manage. Can your process be repeating the same things until you heal? Yes, but if you repeat the same processes every time, you won't heal. You're just repeating the same process, which is what we do when we look for healing in a relationship sometimes. So sometimes we need to go to somebody else, like a relationship therapist, who will then turn around and say, yeah, don't do that. Let's do this instead. And let's look at why. It's not as simple as that. It never is, but it allows us, because we like to stay in toxicity, some of us, and some relationships are toxic and some relationships are abusive. And there's a real difference between those two. And it's around intent. Often abusive relationships are quite calm, even though can be explosive, but toxic relationships are often utterly explosive and going off all the time. And it can definitely be both. And I've got another writing about the difference between abuse and toxicity. But if we're used to toxicity, if it's what we saw our parents do, if it's what our families did, we're way more likely to invite that into our lives and have that quite normally. We're also terrified sometimes if we break up with someone about the finances, about where we live, about our children. We might be financially, emotionally dependent on somebody else. That makes it really, really hard. And walking away is hard. It gets more complex, doesn't it? And we have to learn to like ourselves, and communication skills are really important as well. But you have to understand your own values before you do that. That makes a difference as well. So, of course, we have some evolutionary habits and different things as well. And I really do think that the influx of apps that we have, especially when it comes to poly and kink, I'm not sure they're that great for us, because what they allow is ease of access to a bunch of human beings with no responsibility and no accountability, which is one of my favorite words. It's easy, isn't it? We just go out. It's a social thing. We have a good time. Will you do this? Will you do that? I'm not sure that's good. Cinder says, well, don't they just? I received a long list of expectations from a Dom this week. It all came in the second message too. What about your list of expectations? But maybe that's really new fashioned of me instead of old fashioned. City dancer. Many times I find someone attractive, but my brain comes in to interfere. What should I listen to, my body or my brain? It's all your brain. It's all your brain. So the question here is, what aspects are you being told? Because it's all about doing a cost benefit analysis. If you find someone attractive, and then another part of your brain interferes, you've got all the flood of hormones going on. Is this the voice of reason, or is this the voice of fear? And they're two very different aspects, aren't they? Oh, I don't know, it's not good. Oh, I don't know, what do I do here? Do I like that person? Don't I? Oh my God, they're so hot. I think your guts are really important. We don't tend to listen to our guts enough. It's very important. So like for me, Cinders, with that, my guts would have said, fucking hell, like Really? Already? You don't even know me. Do you want me as a human being, or do you want what you think I should offer you? I feel quite strongly about that, especially around fetishes and stuff. Please wear a silk blouse. No, you can get to know me. When we really like each other, I'll wear a silk blouse for you whenever you want. But that's a when, it's not a now. I want you to like me in the blouse, not the blouse on anybody. So, you know, yeah. Whereas actually a lot of people might really like that. Oh my God, we're straight to control. That's so sexy and that's really good. But a lot of our apps are very socially based. They're quite dangerous. So for me, City Dancer, just to reiterate, is that a voice of reason or is that a voice of fear? Trying to differentiate between those two is a really good idea. Am I scared? So am I stopping myself? Or am I being really sensible here? And sometimes kind of opening that up to somebody else to have a conversation can be really helpful, especially if you've got someone who isn't particularly judgmental and can really listen. I do think when it comes to kink, I do think that munches and gatherings and meetings are really important. I think the world is full of wankers and you will find them anywhere you go. Here, even at the odd time, we find people that aren't particularly nice and aren't particularly pleasant. However, when as a community, we share our skills and we share our experience and we strengthen those values, I think that's a really good place to be in, which you won't get from an app. And it's very difficult to get that from an app, but that's the way a lot of us are connecting now. And it's so easy to be something that somebody wants when we can think about it and just text it versus in the moment. I'm very much a believer in meet as quickly as you can, video as quickly as you can, and really see who people are. And people don't really show you who they are for at least 6 months, because that's when all those fucking hormones are starting to decrease. So around that 6-month mark is when we truly get to know what somebody's really like. But we need to encourage safe connection, sane connection, consensual connection. And a lot of apps don't allow for that. I think if you're prone to trauma reenactment or you have a dysregulated nervous system, it's not always safe to trust your gut. I think if you have either of those things, you need to go for really good therapy and get those things slightly altered before you go in. Many, many months ago, there was somebody came in here who, and I pissed them off. In fact, I mentioned this on Sunday with Poppy. Many months ago, this person came in and said, oh, I tend to punch people and do this and whatever, and it's reactive and I can't help it. And I said, well, then I don't think you should be playing. And they said, who the fuck are you to tell me whether I should be playing or not? And I said, a stranger who sees and hears that you cause danger and harm to other people because you can't control what you're doing or where you are. We might have a basic right to some kind of something, but that right doesn't give us the right to hurt another human being. So we need to think about that. And they were really cross with me, and that's okay. But that was my opinion. And that would have been my opinion as a therapist, as a human being, in any way, shape or form. I really think it's important. And Cinder said, gut feelings are key. Sadly, a lot of the tools we have in our lives now heighten our sense of disconnection. Yeah, and actually it's fine. We're so connected to other human beings, but actually we're not connected at all. We're connected through immediacy, and proximity isn't the same as intimacy. And we confuse intimacy and proximity all the time. Just because you're next to each other doesn't mean you're being intimate. That is, it's proximity. You're just there. If you're talking to each other on a phone, that's proximity, not physically, but it's proximity through message, but that's not necessarily intimacy. And we get that really confused. So I think if you're prone to trauma reenactment or you have a dysregulated nervous system, I think you have to learn a shit ton more about yourself before you keep putting yourselves in those situations. And I wish that there was more therapy out there for free or different things that we could help people do that. Andy says, in the end, we are humans and we need to face-to-face interaction. And wow. Darganac says, my battery's dying. We'll watch the rest on the recording. Thanks, you're welcome. It's only a bit longer anyway. So I think we have to be really careful, because when we go back to a tradition in kink spaces, there are workshops, there are things that are happening. People are trying to share stuff. And yes, cliques are there because cliques are cliques. There are people here. So like I might mention Jerry, I might mention Opal Fruit, Reverend Tully, Cosmopolite. These people keep coming. Cinders keeps coming. Karis keeps coming. Andy keeps coming. Naomi keeps
Sorry, I won't. If you're going to get stroppy about it, I won't. I'm going to bugger off.
So all these people keep coming. So I'm getting to know these human beings. I know Emily, I've met Emily. I know quite a few people here. And actually there are people here I've only met through these workshops. So cliques develop naturally. But what a lot of us do with that is say, well, it's not for me, it's not fair. Why should I be part of this? Why am I doing this? And there are plenty of other people here that I haven't mentioned. And some of those people have now probably gone, oh, fuck, she doesn't recognize me, does she? That's not fair. Because we project our own shit onto a situation every single time, the same we do as attraction. So it's really hard. So we feel like we can't infiltrate into that. However, an abuser can infiltrate often into these systems because, and someone said to me, do you think predators are more relevant or prevalent in the kink community? It's about the same as vanilla, really, to be honest, that there are abusers everywhere. We need to talk, we need to share information, we need to be careful about people, and we need to go a bit slower. And anybody who gives us a set of rules that says this is the way we must behave, and especially if they try and take us away from other people, then we need to be really careful, because kink apps and kinky stuff that we're doing aren't really looking to replace those spaces. People are trying to make money out of them. People want to share something or their message. So it's really hard to find the people that we want. We often end up feeling like small communities are family to us. That often happens in places like FetLife or groups of people that put on kink events because we feel like we found our tribe. So we end up in odd situations. Yeah, at LAM, we talk about Lamley. Look, is LAM popular? Always? No, some people fucking hate it. Some people hate rope spaces. Some people hate different spaces for different reasons. And people, a lot of people don't like Cosmic. He's a Marmite character, for sure, for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean I am, and I'm connected to LAM. It doesn't mean Jerry is, and he's connected to LAM. You know, and people tend to judge by one person, and then you're wrong for supporting somebody when they're wrong. And actually, sometimes you can be better off supporting somebody because you're educating and trying to support and help. And that's just not Cosmic. That's everybody on the planet. Cinders agreed. I deleted my Facebook and Instagram accounts this week as they were not helping my mental health at all. They never do. They are so dangerous. We know that when people stop living on social media, we feel so much better. And when we turn the news off and down as well, especially fake news, like, do you know, people's source now for news is mainly places like TikTok and other social media. So we're giving false information around news and around all that, and it's really bad for our mental health. And I'm already seeing improvements. I'm really glad. Well done, Cinders. Social media, unfortunately, seems to focus on things being easily accessible. And actually, it also feeds us this idea that these certain type of people are attractive. You have to have this to be attractive. You have to be attractive in this way. And that's just not true. And as Jerry says, it's opinions, it's fake news, it's stories that just have no backup. And when we feel really down, we're much more likely to buy into conspiracy theories and different things that happen. And we're much more likely to find people who are more dangerous to us attractive because we're longing for connection. Andy says, in one sense, you've got to keep an open mind as to who you might meet in the kink world, but at the same time, be vigilant. I mean, everywhere be vigilant. Be really aware of your own hormones, which is why I've gone through chemistry. Be really aware of your own chemistry. I spoke to a guy about 5 weeks ago, seemed really nice. He said, and I said, can we talk on the phone? And when I listened to his voice, I was like, I think you're a con man. Your voice does not match your picture at all. My whole guts were screaming con man. And then we did a video call because I asked him one really quickly. It was him talking. I was like, where are you from? And he had a really interesting history around where he was from. Something still didn't feel right. And then within 5 weeks, it was me who couldn't meet because I was really busy. And then we were about to meet. And then, of course, he gave me an investment opportunity for £3,000. There we go. My guts were right all along. And I said, do you know what? I'm so excited by this incredible return. I'm willing to offer you 5 grand or maybe even 10. I'm so excited about this. And he was really excited about it. So I said, I just need a copy of your driving license, your passport, 2 to 3 different forms of utility bills and your bank statement. And we can go ahead with this. And in fact, I might even bring a few friends. It's funny how I didn't get those. And he said, well, the business will do that. I went, great. I just want to investigate the business. And I want the CEO's the same details from him. He said, fuck me, you want a lot, whatever. I've shown you nothing but love over the past 5 weeks. And I went, that's a very strange kind of love. It's going to cost me $3,000. And it's so easy to get sucked into these situations when someone's attractive or seems attractive or gives us hope for what we want. And that's the most dangerous aspect of attraction. What we imprint onto the person that we are meeting. I haven't even had time properly to go into attachment theory, but I've written about it before. And also in one of my writings, there's also a lot about imprinting as well. I've written about it, about in attraction. So that sort of thing that we feel around human beings, the things that we hope, we put that expectation on the person. And actually, we need to be aware what we are projecting onto the other person. Oh my God, this could be it. This is so lovely. Oh my God, they could be everything. And you've gone 6 months, 12 years down the line, instead of staying where you are and letting that person prove who they are, letting them prove that they are a great human being and letting them show that they are really rather wonderful. So imprinting really matters, and our attachment matters. Over 50% of people, or around 50% of people, actually have insecure or avoidant attachment patterns. So that's most of us. It's about 50-50 now. And that means that we have struggled to attach to another person. So that means we don't feel safe. And our critical thinking and how we then work is impacted. I have over 625 writings on FetLife as the kink shrink, if you're on FetLife. So if you follow me on FetLife, it's capital T-H-E, capital K-I-N-K, capital S-H-R-I-N-K. So I'm the kink shrink. It doesn't mean anything. Anyone can call themselves anything. So it's a load of bollocks, isn't it? So we've got to be really careful about that as well. You know, that filial imprinting, again, if you have a look, there's all sorts of work that you can look up from Spalding. You can look at Heinroth and all sorts of different people. And it was Lawrence who made a very famous piece of work that was then done with a film where he imprinted some grey lag geese. Do you remember the story with the geese following him when he traveled and he flew? And it's based on a story. What did you imprint to get offered an investment opportunity? This man was an idiot. If anyone deserves a good gunpoint abduction story, it's you, Tess. Thanks. Cinder says, Andy, yeah, it has changed for the worst over the years. I noticed an increased level of anger in people I got to know pre-pandemic, and it was not a nice place to spend my time. It was not enriching my life at all. And you know what, again, that cost-benefit analysis, what's in it for me? Is this is good for me? Oh, thank you. Is that some of my writings? Thank you very much.
All of your writings, yeah.
All of my writings. Thank you very much. So that's where I write mainly. I don't tend to write on other social media. I'm too lazy and I can't be bothered. However, Poppy and I, Scene Cancer and I, are just sorting out, we're going to be doing these weekends soon. And these weekends will be too fucking full of all sorts of stuff to learn about this stuff. So we're going to do kink and polyamory and relationships and sex and communication from beginning to end. And we're even going to be covering specialist first aid when it comes to kinksters, the sort of first aid that we might need rather than anybody else. And we're going to be covering all sorts of things from epigenetics, from how to negotiate, what to do. Again, I've got writings on negotiation. We have to be really aware of our chemistry when we start to negotiate. We don't know where or when or how much. What we know, Sarah's right, is we're going to take them around the country. So we're going to do maybe like one right down south. Like we're going to go east and west. We're going to go up to Scotland. We're going to be in Manchester. We're just going to do these sets of weekends and invite everyone in. We're going to try and be really conscious of people's mental health and physical health and well-being. So like we have quiet spaces and different, like try and look at the lights and everything. So we're really considering people. Newcastle, pretty please. Yay for the forthcoming tour. And then we're going to cover everything. And then we're at the same time, we're going to make what we cover into a living book online. So people can also sign up for the living book. I do see patients, clients, I do. And so does Scene Counsellor if I haven't got anyone. And what we're going to do is create this book that has chapters in it about all of this, about mental health and wellbeing communication, especially around poly, BDSM and everything else as well. And the idea of it will be that every time a new piece of research comes out, we'll do it. Every time a new piece of something else, yes, I can see people in California, City Dancer, because I see them under coaching, because you can't, your insurance doesn't cover you to do psychotherapy with somebody. So you see them under a counselling guise or cover. So yes, that's how I do that. If you connect to me on FetLife, you can do that, or you can email me if you want to know my email address, and I'll tell you what I can and can't do at gmail.com. That's my email if you want to write for me. So then we're putting these really interesting weekends together with this living book on a website that, yes, you're going to have to pay a little bit for, because it's a shit ton of work for us to do. All the writings will be in there, everything else as well. We're just going to put it together, and then we're just going to keep amending it as new bits of research or new writings come out, and then we put it all together so we can all develop together, because there's nothing like that in the UK. You've got the Journey, and you've got Leather Journey, and you've got some interesting places in America, but we don't have anything like that in the UK, and we would like to do something very systematic and cover all this stuff. So imprinting really matters to us as well. So we learn to attach the stuff I'm doing around expectations, the piece I'm writing at the moment. You know, we have expectations from birth almost that we copy. It might not be cognitive, but it's a behavioral aspect where we copy and we expect certain things. So it's really important that that leads to our attraction. It leads to our sexual preference. It leads to so much, as well as we're slightly born that way as well. It's always, when somebody say, is it nature or nurture? The answer is always both. It's a predisposition, and then the nature, our experience brings that out. So it's experiential as well. It's what we suffer or what we don't suffer, and how well we are. So again, really important. And then after that, when we have that, there's also, when we look at imprinting, there's also the Westermark effect. So we often look for the characteristics of our parent are sought out in the mates in some way, shape or form. Cosmopolite, if someone has insecure attachment, do you think it's reasonable, unreasonable for them to ask someone to communicate about what we can expect to hear or not, or hear from someone? I think it's really fucking reasonable. I think it's reasonable if you've even got a fucking secure attachment, cosmopolite. That's part of negotiation. This is, I expect if somebody talks to me, or I would like a good morning, a good night, I would like some form of conversation. If somebody wants to arrange to meet me, I would like a little bit of conversation every day. So I very clearly say, this is what I would prefer. Clearly, it's not something you have to do, because we can't make someone do something. Nobody owes you attraction. Nobody owes you any of these things. However, it's really important to negotiate what's important to you. And if you feel very strongly about that, and it would influence the way you feel, the way you're attracted, or anything else as well, it's really important to ask for what you want. But we can't guarantee we're going to get it, but you stand a better chance if you at least ask. And then you can start to negotiate, because somebody might say to you, do you know what? So like one of the girls living here at the moment, one of my daughter's friends has come here for the summer holidays because she's taken a year out of uni, and she's got work, and she's studying psychology. And the psychology that she's studying is actually forensic, and she's connected to a prison. And when she goes into the prison, she's not allowed her phone at all. So she could not communicate. However, cosmopolite, so you're saying, just making sure I'm not being too much. Someone told me they prefer sporadic communication. So what I would ask is, can you define what sporadic means? Is it just when you want? What about if I want to talk to you? Does it mean when it suits you? Or does it mean that you can't? Because what does it look like? And then if unpredictability is anxiety producing for you, as you've just said, well, it's not unpredictable if they do say it's sporadic. Or they might say, I'm willing to do it every night or whatever. But if someone isn't, and it's going to produce anxiety in you, then you can choose not to have any form of contact with that person. That is your choice. We always have a choice. And if that's not going to work for you, you need to simply say, that's not going to work for me. Is there any negotiation in this? So I'm here, you're here. Where can we meet in the middle? Because everyone has to give a little bit. Sometimes, you know, there has to be some form of negotiation, because you're saying, I don't want it. That person is saying, I want it all the time, or vice versa. Infrequent I can do, but I don't think I've ever heard someone say sporadic. But did you turn around and say, can I ask what sporadic means to you? I understand what it means. I do this all the time in couples and polycule therapy. Someone uses a word, and they use a word like loyalty. Can you tell me what loyalty means? I mean, they often look at me and go, don't you fucking know? Yeah, I know what it means to me, and I know what the dictionary definition is. I don't know what it means to you. And honestly, when I ask couples to open up about the meaning of words, it's really shocking as to where they go, because they can mean really different things. So nature and nurture really comes in. So I would ask about what sporadic means. I have a whole writing on FetLife as well on negotiating shenanigans. You can really have a look at how we negotiate and what we do. Attachment is really important. I've got some pictures of attachment styles and patterns, how we are and what that means. There's a writing around that as well. And there's a really good book called Observing Children with Attachment Difficulties in School. And that book has a great set of pictures in the back that show you, this is the attachment pattern. These are the sort of symptoms that I have, but these are the answers to it. So I can help you with this attachment pattern if I do these things. And that's a great little book. And there's one later as well, I think, or one earlier, there's a yellow and a red book, but Observing Children with Attachment Difficulties in School. It's a big book. There are some really good things. However, if you really want to work through attachment issues, you need to go and see someone. You really do. We can have a look at strategies. We can help people as part of their attraction and as part of their attachment. However, can we ever be healed or cured? We can certainly cope better in life. That really helps us. And your attachment styles also tend to dictate your breakup styles and patterns, and that's really important to remember. So how somebody attaches is also how they'll tend to break up with you as well. They dictate each other. And when I'm working with couples and I'm working with polycules, we go through this whole thing about bronzes, silvers, and golds, and we go through values, and we go through what is it that somebody wants and what does that mean. It's really important. I know what that means, but what does it mean? And we also do a breakup contract, because it's really important, because then we know we can start to feel better. So we have so much anxiety and so much stress around attraction, around attachment, around lust, and around love, because it brings up all of our insecurities. But I'm still always going to go with, if someone's into you, they're into you. If you keep trying really hard with someone and you get nothing back, it's really hard, but we really need to learn to stop, because it's really bad for us. And that's so much easier said than done. That sounds like patronizing bollocks, doesn't it? Because it is complex and it is hard. Little CL says, I need to top off. Thanks for a great workshop this evening. You're really welcome. I'm just about to finish anyway. Does anyone have a question related to any of this that we've spoken about tonight so far, or anything that they would like to ask as an extra? And the next workshop will be in 2 weeks. So what would you like to ask about? Any question around attraction, attachment, or any of the things that we've been talking about? Anyone got a question before we go? I don't charge for these at all. They are completely free of charge. If you want to do anything, I have a coffee, KOFI, under the Kink Shrink, and I have a Patreon under the Kink Shrink as well. If you want to give me something, you can. If you don't, it doesn't matter. I pay a lot extra to have a larger Zoom and different things, and you don't have to. So please don't think that you do. And if you want my email address earlier, it's really important that you can use that and get a CPD certificate as well. Attachment issues. How do you speak with others about it? I think if you have an attachment issue, I think having a diagnosed attachment issue is very different to having an idea of your attachment style. So I think it's really important to say, this is my attachment style. I tend to be like this and I tend to be like that. These are the sort of things that might come up in our relationship because of it. How would you respond to it and what does it mean to you? I think it's really good to have some kind of conversation around that. Certainly within the first few months of speaking to somebody. When I run workshops, the consensus seems to be before 3 months when we talk about things. City dancer, is exposure therapy generally good? Yes, absolutely. It is really good, but how it's done is really important. It really is. So how we do something is really important. Exposure therapy. Look, if I dropped you in a pit with thousands of spiders or thousands of snakes, and that was your biggest fear, if you don't have a heart attack, you probably will come out okay. I don't know if that's the best way to do it. Like, that's fairly shocking, and it's not something that people do. I think I'd be done for abuse at that stage, so no. However, generally, exposure therapy, if you think about it, is the thing that works for everybody. If eventually we can get used to these things and help calm ourselves, and we can emotionally regulate and help dysregulation, then of course we cope with life better. It's no good pulling ourselves away so that we get lost saying, I can't cope with all of this. And we go blah, and we go down and down and down and down. We don't exist there very well. So we need to go up and change things. Signed up for a week contribution a few weeks ago. Thank you very much, Andy. I really appreciate that. Somebody privately has said, I'm a self-saboteur. Is that an attachment issue area? Yes, it could be. Of course it could be, because it means I don't want to attach to somebody. So I'm always going to ruin it and get in my own way in some way, shape or form. It might not be an actual attachment issue. It could be many things. I would really go and, oh, it was supposed to be for us. Michelle asked, because she's outed herself now, I'm assuming a gender there, I apologize, so they. Michelle asked, I'm a self-saboteur, is that an attachment issue area? Yes, it could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. So we do have to be careful about psychopathologizing shit. You know, I think too many therapists and too many psychologists and psychiatrists say, oh my God, I know what that is. That's an attachment disorder. And you can really miss other things. And we say, oh, you've got bipolar, and actually you've got something else, or actually you've fucking got nothing. Who gives a flying shit? It doesn't matter as long as you learn how to function. So self-sabotage, I think, is about self-confidence, it's self-awareness, it's about our willingness to be vulnerable, and it can be connected to attachment. So it can be connected to quite a few things. So if you've got a therapist, talk to them about it. If you haven't got one, maybe try and find one that you connect with in some way. So you can really start to look at that and help yourself with that as well. That makes a difference. Lady Diana, as always, you're amazing. Love your info and humor. Thank you very much. I mean, don't go into a psychology class and say, are SSRIs like someone coming on someone's face? I don't think it will go down very well. I might be wrong, but you know, I think it could be quite cool. And if they get it, they're probably a really cool professor. Cinders, exposure therapy does work. To City Dancer, I've used it to help ease my rescue kitties out of their dysregulated states after being hit as kittens. When you see a very anxious pet, actually, they need to learn to deal with things. And all this positive, purely positive reinforcement isn't always good. Same as it isn't good for children. We need to learn to deal with the shit stuff, and we need to learn to deal with really hard situations. And we all need boundaries, and we all need consequences. Allowing a child to continuously punch you isn't good for you and isn't good for the child. It's just not good all around. So we need to learn a balance of those consequences that we have as well. Oh, don't get me started with that one. I tell you, you're making, honestly, you're making me have somebody who are thousands of clients for work if that's all you do with children and animals. But thank you, because I'll have clients for life. So exposure therapy can. So City Dancer says, thank you, you're really welcome. Michelle says, thank you for the discussion, so welcome. And Cosmopolite says, I train dogs for a living, purely positive is bullshit. We don't have time all the time, do we? People have to learn to function in life, function in work and manage. And I'm a big believer in let's make it okay for life. That's where my philosophy comes from very much. How can we make life a bit better for you? Rather than getting lost in psychopathology and all. It's too much sometimes. That's cool. How does that help you now? Well, it doesn't. Okay, so let's work on something that does. So thank you all very much for coming. I really appreciate you attending. I really do. See you in 2 weeks' time. I will put it out on FetLife. I will tell you what the subject is, and we'll go from there. I really appreciate you all. As again, you know, it's really lovely that everyone's behaved today and everyone's been lovely. So thank you so much. People saying really lovely things. Thank you. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you as always. Thank you. Love you loads. Oh, thanks. I love you too. Thanks again. Thank you. Thank you. Lovely. I really appreciate you all. This does feed my ego. I do get something from it. I'm, you know, I am aware. I am aware that it does feed my ego, and that's quite a nice feeling as well.
Well, I thought you were rubbish tonight. I thought that was actually.
Luckily, Jerry's a friend. Andy, fantastic as usual. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It does feed my ego, doesn't it? Fuck me. Where else do you get this kind of boost from everybody? So I really appreciate you all. Take care. See you in a couple of weeks' time. If you want to spread the word, get more people to come as well. Really great. Jeannie, really nice. Thank you. Great seeing you again too. Thank you very much. Wanker Wave. Thank you. Appreciate the efforts. We just do this to you at Lamb soon. Yeah. If you ever come to Lamb, come and say hello to me. And we're popping our weekends out at the end of the year as well. Thank you all. Take care. See you later. Bye.